Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Business, trying to cover as many of the work in progress ships as I can. This one, though, is solely dedicated to, the Slava. This is a highly controversial ship in this game. I don't know of anybody who thinks that this is a good idea. So, what you're going to see are two matches in the current state before, and today they announced that they're buffing this. Basically, this is the second iteration of the ship. So it was formerly the Pobeda, very focused on long range engagements, and not only that, but being able to, with exceptional accuracy, nail the shit out of people who are broadside from 24, 25, 28 kilometers away. So I do run the range mod here, which is why I can reach between A and B when I'm on the edge of the map here, so in case you're wondering. But with the range mod, it takes 15 seconds for these shells at 870 meter a second shell velocity to reach that range. That is very, very little time for people to react when you're talking about half that range. So keep that in mind. It may seem like, oh, okay, this is something that maybe it's not so bad. When you think about how long it takes for shells from like a North Carolina to go even 15 kilometers, you might want to rethink that position, because it's not great for the game. So it's gone through a few adjustments here and there. So initially it was 30-second turret reverse, 30-second reload, and a few other things like that. The version you're seeing here is 60-second turret reverse and a 33-second reload. Well, they announced today that they're bringing that down to back to 30 seconds on the reload and 45 seconds for the turret reverse. So basically that means I don't have to run expert marksman now, so I free up a couple points. The other areas that this current version has been tweaked in has been the dispersion ellipse. So what this was supposed to be was the opposite, the yin to the Kremlin's yang. So Kremlin was supposed to be a ship that has such a heavy focus on close range engagements, has a essentially hidden dispersion buff, or a passive dispersion buff, I should say, within certain range brackets, and that was supposed to favor it pushing and that sort of thing. Well, the Kremlin has also received buffs to make it more accurate at more range, and while it's still going to be less accurate compared to its counterparts at that same tier, the Slava was so exceptionally accurate at long range, but it was horrible at close range. And I'm saying, like, anything under 10 kilometers, good luck. Like these shells, it was like you hit X to unselect the target and fire sometimes. It was that bad. I missed destroyers that were 4.5 kilometers away from me entirely. And like, these shells weren't even fucking close. And yes, I knew this Montana was there. I just assumed he would be moving up, actually, instead of trying to sit here, get a shot on me, which thankfully didn't really do much of anything there. Can't say the same for the next Alpha, but anyhow. And just to drive home the idea that these two ships are in fact quite different, the Slava has a maximum of 32 millimeters of deck armor, and that means the survivability of the ship is way low compared to something like the Kremlin. That's not to say it can't tank. Of course it can, but chances are you're not going to survive with this ship the way you would with a Kremlin, or actually really any other tier 10 battleship, I would say. So in that regard, all of these factors are meant to keep this ship at a distance, right? Well, this version that I'm playing here right now also has a particular change to it, to where it's not as accurate, believe it or not, at long range as it used to be, but it's much more accurate at the closer ranges. So basically what they did was, as far as the guns are concerned, they made the ship way better, because now it's usable at all ranges. And you're going to see... Sorry, hiccups. You're going to see close-up shots here and there that I would not have been able to make in the first version that I tested this ship in. And it just, it blows me away to think that this is something that they really want to push forward. And maybe, like, we don't know if it has, like, they have like a strike system, like, okay, this obviously isn't working, but let's just see if we can tweak it a little bit more, and if that's something that's acceptable, if these numbers that we're collecting from our CCs or our super testers and that sort, if those numbers are still really out of line, then we look at some more drastic measures. Well, I really think the only measure that we can manage here is to just remove this ship, because it's we already have enough problems with battleships being at range. We already have enough problems with people who can't hit shit at range. And, you know, again, it goes back to the idea that it takes so long for shells to reach there that whatever damage you could have done is likely not really all that, significant, simply because the chance of it is so low, because they're going to have so much damn time to react to it. This ship removes so much of that reaction time, and not only that, it's often like Zao-like in terms of dispersion at max range, and I've got some examples of that, and I'll show you. But I keep pointing out that this ship, for as strong as it is, the best time for this ship to make itself, its presence known in the match, and not just that, but to make the biggest impact, is either at the very beginning or at the very end, because of how fast the shells are. Again, and obviously the dispersion, but all of that ties in. Everything is centered around the guns with this. You do not want to get into these engagements where you're duking it out with people, multiple targets, because again, turret traverse, reload, you can't really lull pen anybody other than some cruisers here. And speaking of which, I was so confident in this shot, I didn't even zoom back in. Jesus Christ. I mean, oh God. So, essentially, if it's not ships like that, you have to get the broadsides, and the best time to do that is when it's early on in the game, when they're moving to positions to be bow forward in a more defensive spot, right? So if there's ever a carrier or, obviously some fast destroyers, I'm like, look, you've got to get me spotting, and you've got to do it as soon as possible. I can get a couple shots off, maybe nuke somebody right off the bat. You never know. And it's even more alarming because if they've got like various, like say a Minotaur gets spotted at 22 kilometers away, and we've got 3 battleships that are looking at them, and 1 and 2 fire their shells, but 3, being a Slava, fires it a couple seconds later, those shells are still going to get there before anybody else's, save for maybe the Republic. But it's just nuts to me, because it's like, it's kind of like World of Tanks with the artillery. If you're caught out in the open, you're fucking screwed. I mean, it's almost instant with the ship in terms of, by comparison, and it's really hard to explain that. Of course, you could see a lot of that here in the video, but it's really hard to explain that without having more people play it, of course. But the confidence that this gives you in being able to hit targets and hit them quickly is insane. But again, when they go bow forward like that, when they're pushing at you, you can't really do much. I try to aim for the guns to disable or hopefully destroy them, but the ship is just as vulnerable as the Kremlin if they get along your sides. So you have a raised citadel, protected by a ton of armor, of course, which basically means that you're going to be able to deal with a lot in terms of angling, but that 32mm deck and that giant superstructure are going to take a ton of punishment, because those shells are going to be falling in and just wrecking the hell out of you. I mean, I've taken a bunch of 20, 30, 40, 50,000 damage salvos in this, and it doesn't feel good, but it is what it is, because it's, that risk versus reward. Here you are with these ridiculous shells, and watch this. Almost no lead. Bye. Just He's gone. And it's fascinating to me because it's, again, this is something that so far they seem interested in bringing to the game, and I don't see a purpose to it at all. So with that being said, of course, the new version that I'll be testing, I think today, if I actually get this uploaded on the 14th, will have faster turret traverse and faster reload, and it still retains the healing party issue that this has, and very important fire that I set there with the secondary. So we're still basically focusing on ramming the Yamato if we need to, just to make sure that our team gets the win. But it's interesting though, just because, you know, the ship really is horribly weak. If the game isn't going in a particular way, if the enemy ships aren't revealing themselves and exposing themselves in a particular way, you're really not going to do much. So that was a good come from behind victory, and it was way better than I expected that one to turn out. So very happy with those results, and honestly it is kind of fun to play this because I actually feel like my you know, it's kind of like the old Colorado. I always thought that was not the old Colorado, but the one with the 2.0 Sigma was a phenomenal ship to play the more experience you had, because you knew where to place shots. And I'm calling for early spotting here, and this is 27 kilometers away, that Vladivostok, right? So again, try to think of, okay, if my Montana could reach that, how long would it take for those shells to reach? And look at the dispersion. That's 19K. Easy peasy. You know? It's ridiculous. And that's not even the best one. So, shit, this match, this was one for the ages. So we had the stream running, and I didn't really know what to expect with this game in particular, but I don't know. We'll get there as we go, but I've got a little thing to point out too. That doesn't happen till later, of course, but anyhow, the Slava, I can't see a reason to justify its existence in the game, because again, we don't need the bow forward nonsense. We don't need, and that sounds great when you hear that and you actually get damage, of course, multiple hits. And I have hit a lot of people at like 24K with all 9 shells. So just to, again, put that into perspective, how tight the dispersion can be, and if I'm hitting them like that, then obviously it doesn't really take too much to lead that target. So, which is, again, it's fun at the time, but ultimately it's a really bad thing for the game. So but the old Colorado was like that, where I felt like the higher your skill level, the more you would get out of it, but it was a very linear curve. Well, not curve, but where you would, like, okay, you've played 100 matches or 10,000 matches or 15,000 matches. The more you played with the Colorado, the more you understood the inherent ability to reach out and fuck somebody Citadel like hard. And I just think it was fascinating to be able to do that. And I've got a bunch of old clips and stuff showing the punishment the Colorado could unleash on people. And not to say that it can't, it's just less consistent compared to how it was before. So, but the Kremlin is, I'm sorry, the Slava is certainly like that as well, where, at the mid to, close to mid ranges, people have no chance to react. If they're caught broadside and you've got a shot on them, they're either going to take significant damage or they're just going to die, and that's it. And I think that's just, I don't know, with how little time you have to react, you just don't have a chance. And I don't think that's fair for people that are over at the C cap when I'm just south of the A cap, because they may not notice this shit at all. And this is the standard range with the range mod. It's not something that I'm relying on a consumable for, like the spotter plane to temporarily increase my range to 32 kilometers or something like that, or 25 25, 26 kilometers. This is my range all the time. And I don't get it. So anyways, this is the sweet range against a Kurfürst, by the way. So little too far back for what I was trying to do, but solid damage, I guess. It's interesting because, you know, like for the way that people play certain ships, they're very confident at giving ranges that they're not going to take too much damage. And this ship just flips that shit on its head. As you can see here with the Kurfürst still staying broadside. And he's obviously trying to get to just a different position in general. But now our shells are properly led, and they are going to be landing in the sweet spot right at those front turrets and yield a 27k Citadel salvo. And if you go onto my Twitch clips, there's like with the Montana, I have a 41k salvo in the same exact type of spot there from quite a distance away. But over and over again, I've been able to do this against enemy Kurfürst. I've hit some for 35,000 damage with no Citadel. That was a close range thing. And look at this dispersion, holy fuck. That is crazy. Oh god. Even watching this, it's like I feel way worse watching this now than actually in the moment when I'm playing it, because I'm just like, you know, he's red, so he's dead to me. I want to win this match. But that's just like, oh hey, look at me, I'm strolling around. Whoops, I got spotted for a second. I'm almost out of spotting range. Nope. And then, you know, there goes 8,000 health from a few hits. My god. So yeah, another salvo here, and trying to just finish off the Kurfürst, and they fall a little short. I've had issues with this ship as far as the dispersion is concerned, where the shells keep consistently falling short. And I had a broadside Moskva, I think it was like, what, 11 kilometers away, 13 kilometers away, something like that. I missed the first two salvos against him, and he was stationary. He was technically not stationary because he was T-boning a Hindenburg, I think it was, and sliding off of him, like sliding backwards. So I understood on the first salvo why I missed, so I adjusted and aimed higher on the second salvo, and they still fell short. Third salvo, I finally hit a Citadel for like 28k or some nonsense, and it still fell short. But it's weird because, you know, some of these high velocity ships, I mean, one of the best examples, of course, being the Roma, you're going to have these types of issues where you overshoot or undershoot, even though you're shooting the same spot in the 3D space over and over again. So, like there, I think based off of the mini-map and everything, I probably could have corrected that shot before I fired it. It's hard to, when you're looking at a distance at somebody and they're going what looks to be straight, if you look at the mini-map and see that they're slightly angled, you need to aim higher or lower based off of that. So, because over that distance, of course, those shells are going to end up sailing way over top of them. Sometimes you know almost immediately that, nope, those shells are like a boat length too high or something like that. But take a look at this, actually. Poor little Ognivoy, who, I'll just, spoiler alert, he had 1700 base XP in this match. A really hell of a job, hell of a match for him. But look at the placement here. That is fucking perfect. The dispersion, of course, that's a little harder because the shells were kind of in two groups and spread across a little bit of distance there. But that goes to show you, though, the potential. Like, when you miss, you're like, oh man, that would have been so good. But then you consider, well, what the hell are you shooting at? It's a destroyer from, 17 kilometers away, or, another Vladivostok. And guys, look at this. 50 fucking 1,000 damage. Jesus. I don't know. I just feel like this is wrong. This is too easy. Not saying it's always this way. Of course it isn't. Otherwise, I mean, actually, would I be playing anything else now? It's just not good for the game. So, having said that multiple times now, I'm going to vent about this. Why can't I Citadel a fucking Graf Zeppelin? I think I've only maybe done it once or twice. I don't think I've actually ever done it with a Battleship, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was, I thought I did it with, I think it was a Des Moines. And even then, I was like, why am I not hitting a Citadel? So this was just ridiculous. Should have been aced with that first salvo, maybe a second one there, but whatever. Anyhow, that pisses me off. So we're really getting into the thick of things here. It's a very tight game. They lost their carrier, but we're tentatively hanging on to a lead here, but that's going to be going away pretty soon because the Curveverse is going down, and they have sole control of B. Nobody's contesting it, so they're getting points from that too. Very disappointed in the salvo there that I had against the Montana side. 17,000 whatever the hell, and we get it again. But at least that time, it was just one turret. It's hard to justify that sort of damage result when you're talking about two turrets throwing 6 shells and only getting 17, 18,000. That's not right. No, but yeah, that works. The problem with that is I should have been able to kill him with the first salvo to begin with, and then switch over to the Cleveland here, because shit really hits the fan. There's a Neptune further back behind the Vladivostok that's in front of me. We've got the Cleveland over here to the left. There's the Ognivoy and also the Daring, and basically everybody's shooting at me. I figure chances are I'm pretty well screwed here. So I don't like the results when I shoot at battle-forward battleships. Look at the dispersion, but look at the results. There's nothing there, and that's the key strength of playing against this. If you have the armor, you can tank the Slava shells for quite a while. Granted, if the shots start coming in on your turrets, you're going to be losing those turrets at some point, because the extreme shell pen that these shells have, at any range, of course, but especially when you're talking about these closer engagements, they're going to punch right through that shit. And by the way, did you notice that? I've got Kuznetsov on here because I'm flooding and I'm on fire, and he just wiped those out for me. So check this out. My situation is not improving here, right? I am pretty well screwed because, again, there's 4 sources of potential damage here. Well, potentially 4 sources, but managed to finally get rid of the Vladivostok. But there's the Ognivoy, there's the Daring, and the Neptune is still smashing the hell out of me, right? Check this out. Finally get my heal, and our health goes down to 45 hit points. And I'm just trying to survive this, trying to figure out how the hell can I make my impact felt here. And the Ognivoy takes a little bit of damage there. I get my rear turret, best turret, and he takes a little bit more from the Des Moines, and he's gone. So now we still have to worry about the Daring and the potential for fires there, because once the damage control party is up, I'm not getting it for another 60 seconds, and that's more than enough time for him to be able to burn me down, and especially because my other heal isn't for another few seconds after that. So I'm trying to take my time with this shot, make sure that before he kills me, I'm able to inflict some damage onto him. And sure enough, holy fuck. And if I had accelerated a little earlier, probably would have been able to top this match off with the 7th kill. So hats off to my teammates though. They've really pulled some crazy shit out of their hats, and hats off also to the Ognivoy on the enemy team. Usually don't see that too much, but I can't advocate for the ship to be in the game. I'd rather see it scrapped entirely. There's no way, shape, or form that this is good for the game. Even though I did enjoy playing it, that's not the same as me saying, yeah, this is something that we should throw into the game. No, it's not. And this is the wrong direction for the game, period. But thank you for watching today, guys. I'll see you back here next time. Take care.